Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing the most important advice I have for Dumpees. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing the most important advice I have for dumpees. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, then you're likely going through a difficult time. In today's podcast, I'm going to be giving the 3 most important pieces of advice that I have for dumpees. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is keep your glass half full. Now, this isn't a suggestion for you to develop a drink problem. No, not at all. No, this is in reference to keeping a positive mindset. See your glass as half full rather than half empty. Today is the first day of the rest of your life, a chance to reset, to grow, and to be better. Now, if you're going through the grind after a breakup, it's very understandable for you to be feeling negative. It's very understandable for you to believe that nothing is going your way. It's very understandable to not see the light at the end of the tunnel. But you need to alter your mindset. You need to remove this faulty thinking. Because this very important advice that I want to give you in point number 1 to dumpees is for you to remain positive, remain focused, and use this as an opportunity to grow further than you would ever before. Now, as human beings, we're much more likely to take action after something bad has happened rather than if something good has taken place. I mean, you're listening to this podcast now. You know, if your life was going absolutely brilliantly, would you be listening to a podcast about how to make it even better? Very few people would. Most people only take action when things are going wrong. So you're listening to this podcast now because you've been dumped, because you probably want to try to get your ex back. You're now taking that action. And this enables you to have an opportunity to do something that you couldn't have done if you was within your relationship. If you were still feeling fundamentally happy, you probably wouldn't be pushing things even further. And this is why you have a chance now to not only to reset, but to grow and to be better than ever before. You were dumped as a version 1 of yourself. I always encourage people to become a version 2.0. And you can start this today, taking those early steps towards becoming the best version of yourself that there has ever been. This will give you an opportunity to not only potentially reattract your ex, but find somebody even better, because a larger attraction net is developed when we become a version 2.0. As a version 1, you attracted your ex. You couldn't attract everybody, but you could attract your ex. If you're version 2.0, you can attract even more people. And this would mean people who was beyond your reach at the time of you initially attracting your ex. So that is why, if you become a version 2.0 of yourself, you can attract somebody even better than your ex. Whether or not you get them back, whether or not you get the opportunity to speak with your ex again, you can and will find somebody even better than your ex if you live your life in the right way, do enough of the right things, and move forward with positivity. So try and keep your glasses half full, because all is not lost. If anything, this is just the beginning. This isn't the end. You know, don't think of things as this is the end of your story. No. This is just the end of a chapter of your life. And your ex probably isn't going to be involved in the next chapter of your life. But we don't know whether your ex will have a starring role 2 or 3 chapters down the line. Now, even if you don't get them back, as I've already said, you stand the opportunity of a couple of chapters further along to attract somebody even better into your life. So don't think of this as the end of your story, because we never know when the story ends. Think of it instead as the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one, a new exciting chapter where you can live your life as a single person, doing things that perhaps you couldn't or never thought of before. This isn't the moment to feel sorry for yourself. Instead, this is the moment to push forward with positivity, live your life to the full, join new classes, groups and clubs, and make new connections. When you look at your glass and you see it's about halfway, make sure you see it as half full rather than half empty. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about the most important advice I have for Dumpees. And point number 2 is don't listen to bitter people. Sometimes our friends and family want to give us advice. Now that's fine, providing they are speaking with a balanced mindset. Now if somebody has already had their own breakup trauma and they haven't worked through it, then they will likely speak from a traumatized position. If someone has an anxious or avoidant attachment style, then they will speak from that position as well. If you follow advice from bitter people, there is a good chance you will also end up bitter. Somebody needy will persuade you to feel needy as well, and so on and so on. Additionally, those closest to us will likely have an emotional connection to you and or your ex. Having an emotional position can skew our perspective and advice. That's why sometimes the best advice can come from a professional who has a secure attachment and doesn't have an emotional angle in your story. And that is why I always say to people, if you would like my support moving through your breakup recovery, if you want me to be your coach and your teammate through your journey in trying to increase the chance of getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where you can speak one-on-one about your specific unique situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. But going back to point number 2 and about don't listen to bitter people, it's really important that you balance the suggestions and the advice you have by considering what position are they coming from. So like I said, if you have a friend or family member who you know from your own research now has an avoidant attachment style or has an anxious attachment style, then their advice is going to be skewed in that perspective. Additionally, if a friend or family member really liked your ex or really disliked your ex, they're not going to be giving you balanced advice. Additionally, if you have a friend or family member who went through a very difficult breakup and maybe they didn't get advice, they didn't get support from the right people, and they, to this day, are still struggling, and you know they are, and you know deep down when you think about it, they're kind of angry still, they're kind of bitter. 2-3 years on, they're still looking at potential dating options in a negative light, and they think of their ex in a really bad way. If you know that your friend or family member has these feelings, has these emotions, has these opinions, are they really the best person to get advice from when you're going through your breakup? You wouldn't get advice about having to do a certain type of trade, like maybe an electrician, maybe a plumber, maybe a carpenter, or whatever it may be. You wouldn't get advice on one of those important subject matters by somebody who failed their woodwork course at school. You wouldn't get advice from somebody who tried to be a plumber but failed the entrance exam. You wouldn't be getting advice from them about how to sort out your leaky pipes. You wouldn't be getting advice from somebody who unfortunately has failed in that situation. But what we often see is people will take advice from friends and family members who have had very bad relationship experiences, traumatizing experiences, negative, faulty thinking experiences, people who have had many failed relationships without any sign that they might be able to proceed into a healthier connection in the future. And yet, people will listen to this type of advice because these people are their friends and their family members. And somewhat that's understandable because we do listen to our peers. We have certain people in our life that we value their opinion more so than what you might refer to as an expert, somebody, a professional in their field. But if you want the best outcomes in life, generally speaking, you need to be listening to a wide range of opinions and coming to a conclusion about who might actually have the best, most honest perspective. When it comes to relationships, breakups, life coaching, you need to be making sure you're listening to somebody, but firstly, doesn't have an emotional angle in your story, but secondly, is coming from a healthy, secure attachment style. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about the most important advice I have for Dumpees. And point number 3 is make hay whilst the sun shines. So when you have a good day, be productive. When you feel good, keep pushing forward. And in essence, that is what that saying means. Make hay whilst the sun shines. When the sun's shining, you need to be productive. And when you're going through the grind, when you're going through a breakup, initially, those good days are going to probably be hard to come by. Okay, when you've first been broken up with, it can be a very difficult first few weeks or months even, where you have very few positive days. As the months tick by into the years, you're much more likely to have more good days than bad days. But certainly early on, and sometimes for people, unfortunately, even later on in their journey, there will still be lots of difficult days. And therefore, when you have a good day, when you wake up and you don't even know why, but you just feel a bit better about things, you need to be productive. One of the most difficult things when you're going through a breakup is to find motivation. It's so hard to do the things I suggest when you're feeling low energy. When I'm saying join a new class group or club and you don't feel like getting out of bed, that is very difficult. But what happens if you have a day where you wake up and you just feel a little better? You don't really know why, but you feel just a little bit more positive. And even though you're worried that you might fall down again in your mindset later on in the day, right now you feel good. Well, if you do, then you need to be productive. You need to make hay whilst the sun shines. So this is the moment to consider researching classes, groups and clubs. This is the moment to organise things with your friends. This is the moment to go out into the world and experience new things and make new connections. Now, maybe you know exactly why you feel a little bit better today. Maybe it's because your ex reached out to you. Maybe you've had your first contact from your ex and that has lifted a huge weight off your shoulders. Now, unfortunately, right now, you haven't reconnected. You haven't got your ex back. Congratulations, you're in the communication stage, but you haven't actually got back together. So what do I suggest? Well, at this moment, you're feeling a little bit better. This is not the time to sit at home alone, excitedly waiting for the next message off your ex. No, instead, this is the time to push forward with your life. Maybe you've got that text from your ex, it's lifted your mood for the first time in months, and you just don't really know what to be doing with yourself. You're just kind of waiting by the phone, wanting to have the next conversation. I would say instead of this, make sure you're pushing forward. Again, this is the moment to do the research, join new classes, groups and clubs, make new connections, live your life to the full. Your ex isn't going to be turned off by this. If anything, they're going to be excited to hear you are growing your life in a positive direction. So the next time you actually speak with your ex, you will be in a position to tell them what you've been doing. And this will be something that they have unlikely predicted, something that they might be pleasantly surprised about, something where they can see positive change that you have made. It's so important that you don't think you've completed the task as soon as you receive a text from your ex. This is not the time to stop improving. This is the time to push forward. This is the time to make hay whilst the sun shines. If you feel a bit better about yourself, push forward, make plans, decide this is the moment to ask your friend or family member to go on that trip with you. Decide this is the moment to join that extra college class that you didn't have the energy to do before. You need to be making your life better when you have the feeling and the opportunity to have the motivation to actually take things to the next level. Lack of motivation prevents growth. Lack of growth reduces the chance of you getting your ex back and reduces the chance of you finding somebody even better. So keep pushing forward and make hay whilst the sun shines. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.